Sometimes in life, we trust the wrong people. Not because we're naive, but because our loyalty runs deep, and we expect the same in return. But what happens when the one you helped rise, the one you fed and looked out for, turns around and becomes the reason you fall? Welcome to Movie Bites, where we bring you the stories that shaped us, moved us, and stayed with us long after the credits rolled. Today, we're revisiting Paid in Full, a powerful story about grinding your way out of the struggle, building something real, and learning the hard way that betrayal often comes from the people you love the most. We'll check in on the actors behind Ace, Mitch, Rico, and more, seeing where they are now and how this unforgettable film still hits just as hard all these years later. First up, we have the not-so-coolest drug dealer you'll ever see in any film. Ace Boogie, portrayed by Wood Harris. Ace wasn't out there flashing gold chains or driving the hottest cars. Nope, he was working a regular job at a dry cleaner, just trying to make ends meet. But as life often does, things took a turn. Ace stumbles upon some white powder, and the next thing he knows, he's in the game, selling to keep his head above water. But Ace's journey into the drug trade wasn't all about fast money and fame. His misfortunes piled up, and it wasn't long before betrayal and violence became a part of his reality. The man just couldn't catch a break. At the time, Wood Harris was 33 years old, and already carving out a name for himself. He'd made his big screen debut in the 90s with Above the Rim, 1994, which was his first breakout role. But it was Paid in Full that really showed his range. And not long after, he became iconic for his role as Avon Barksdale in The Wire, a role that would define a generation of TV viewers. Now, Wood Harris is 55 years old and still going strong. He's remained a steady presence in Hollywood, taking on roles in everything from Creed to Blade Runner 2049 to BMF. But even as his career has grown, Ace Boogie still stands as one of his most memorable roles. The quiet, calculated man who tried to beat the odds and make it out alive. Let's move on to another unforgettable character in Paid in Full, Mitch, played by the talented Mekhi Phifer. Mitch wasn't just a hustler, he was the guy. Flashy, confident, and respected in the streets of Harlem. He had the cars, the clothes, the money. But beneath all that shine was a man who deeply loved his family, especially his little brother. That's what made Mitch different. He wasn't just chasing the game, he was trying to protect what mattered most. Mekhi Phifer brought real heart to this role. You felt every bit of that loyalty and pain he carried. And when the ultimate betrayal came from someone he trusted like a brother, it hit hard. Mitch didn't go out soft, though. He went out trying to save his little brother. And that's what makes his story so powerful. When the film dropped in 2002, Mekhi was just 28. He was already turning heads in movies like Clockers and Soul Food, but Paid in Full gave him a whole new edge. It showed just how deep he could go, playing a character who wasn't just about the hustle, but about heart, sacrifice, and survival. Today at 50, Mekhi is still doing his thing. He's respected, especially in the Black community, for keeping it real on screen. He starred in major projects like ER, 8 Mile, and Divergent. But no matter how far his career goes, for a lot of fans, he'll always be remembered as Mitch, the one who was betrayed by his uncle, set up by a friend, and went out trying to save the one person he couldn't live without. Let's move on to someone we all know, Regina Hall. In Paid in Full, Regina played Kesha, Mitch's little sister, and later, Ace's girlfriend. And let me tell you, from the moment she stepped on screen, she brought a whole different kind of energy to the film. Kesha wasn't flashy, she wasn't loud, she wasn't about the street life. She was, well, just as boring as Ace. And I mean that in the best way possible. Even she joked about it in the movie. She straight up told Ace, "You're boring," and then doubled down with, "I'm boring too." That's when you knew it was real love. Two chill, low-key people who somehow found peace in each other while the world around them was going wild. Kesha loved Ace, and more than anything, she just wanted him to be safe. By the time she gives birth to their baby girl, on the very same night Ace nearly loses his life, you feel that weight, that turning point. That moment where everything changes and Ace decides he's done with the game. Kesha, in her quiet, calm way, was a big part of that. Regina Hall was just 22 at the time, And I already recognized her from Love and Basketball and Scary Movie. Even back then, she had that charm, that magnetic screen presence that made you lean in a little closer when she talked. Now at 54, Regina Hall has carved out one of the most respected careers in the game. She starred in Think Like a Man, The Best Man Holiday, Barbershop, and the list just keeps going. She's funny, talented, graceful, and deeply loved in the Black community. But to the fans of Paid in Full, she'll always be Kesha, the woman who was just as boring as Ace, and that's exactly why we loved her. When Rico steps into the room, he seems like a good guy, but don't let that innocent look fool you. I hated this guy the moment he showed up on screen. Cameron's portrayal of Rico wasn't just believable, it was personal. He had that snide smirk, that arrogant swagger, like he knew something you didn't and was ready to stab you in the back with it. From the jump, you could feel it. This dude was dangerous. Rico was a snake in designer clothes. He wasn't slick like Ace. Ace moved with purpose, quiet, smart, always thinking 5 steps ahead. Rico? He was loud, flashy, reckless. The kind of guy who talks too much, parties too hard, and doesn't think twice before pulling the trigger. He wasn't in it for loyalty or love. He was in it for himself. And you could practically see the fuse burning every time he walked into a room. Cameron, who was just 26 when he took on the role, brought all that raw, street-smart energy with him. And by then, he was already deep in the rap game, respected, seasoned, and known for keeping it real. That same authenticity bled into Rico, making the character hit even harder. Now at 49, Cameron's still holding his own in the music world. But for a lot of Paid in Full fans, he'll always be Rico. The guy who couldn't be trusted. The one who was always one bad decision away from blowing everything up, and who ultimately became the villain in a movie that will always be remembered. Calvin, played by Kevin Carroll, was one of those characters you could never trust from the moment he showed up. The first time we meet him, he's walking into the dry cleaners where Ace works, like he owns the place. He's dating Ace's sister, and he's already deep in the game, making his money from selling coke. Calvin moves like he's got the juice, but underneath all that confidence, there's a quiet arrogance that rubs you the wrong way. Things take a turn when Calvin ends up in jail, and by the time he gets out, everything's changed. Ace is no longer the quiet kid working in the back. He's now the one running the streets, calling the shots. Calvin, fresh out and expecting to pick up where he left off, has to take orders from someone he once looked down on. That shift eats away at him, and it doesn't take long before his envy gets the best of him. Instead of playing his position, he plots on Ace, setting up the brutal hit that nearly takes him out. Kevin Carroll played this role so damn perfectly at the age of 33. He brought a cold, calculated energy to Calvin. Never loud, but always watching, always scheming. You felt the resentment brewing underneath his smile. Carroll had been acting since the 90s, building a name for himself with solid performances. While he's had roles in film, it's television where he's really stood out, with memorable appearances in shows like The Leftovers, Snowfall, and Lucifer. Now 55 years old, Kevin Carroll continues to work steadily in the industry. But to Paid in Full fans, he'll always be remembered as Calvin, the snake in the grass who couldn't handle being replaced, and let jealousy turn him into the very danger Ace had tried to avoid. Let's talk about Dora, played by the amazing Cynthia Martels. Dora was Ace's sister, and even though she didn't have the biggest role in Paid in Full, when she did show up, you felt it. She wasn't just Ace's sister, she was also Calvin's girlfriend, which, let's be honest, was the worst pairing possible. That dude treated her like she was disposable. Remember that scene when they pull up to the dry cleaners together, and Calvin just straight up tells her to shut up? Not even low-key. He barked it in front of Ace, like it was normal. But even with all that, Dora wasn't some quiet background character. As Ace started building his empire, Dora rolled up her sleeves and got involved. She became part of the inner circle. The money counting, the product moves. It wasn't just a boys' club. Dora was in there, side by side with her brother, helping run the operation. She may not have been out in the streets like Mitch or Rico, but behind the scenes, she was putting in work. What made her story really hit hard was the ending. When Calvin, filled with envy and bitterness, comes back to rob Ace, It's Dora who ends up caught in the storm. Cynthia Martell's brought a raw, authentic energy to Dora. She's a Tony-nominated actress, known for her work on Broadway, TV, and film. Long before Paid in Full, she had been grinding in the game with roles like Zoomin', 1995, and she always delivered characters that felt real. She was probably in her late 20s when she filmed this, and now she's in her 50s. Still talented, still beautiful, and still one of those underrated actresses you wish had more screen time. Let's move on to Mr. Pip, played by Chi McBride. Mr. Pip owns the dry cleaning shop where Ace works before he's pulled into the game. He's old school, works hard, believes in doing things the right way, and doesn't hold back on speaking his mind. He can see that Ace is a smart kid, but he doesn't like where he's headed. Mr. Pip doesn't want Ace to fall into that street life, but as we all know, Ace has other plans. The moment Ace decides to leave the dry cleaning job, it's a turning point. He's done with the low wages and long hours. He's ready to step into something bigger, something more exciting. But when Ace quits, there's one thing he's not about to let go. He demands his $75 from Mr. Pip. And when Mr. Pip hesitates or tries to downplay it, Ace is firm. I still need my $75 by Friday. It's like Ace is asserting his power, even in this little moment. Chi McBride played Mr. Pip with that perfect balance of wisdom and frustration. He was 41 at the time, and you could see the experience and gravitas he brought to the role. He wasn't just the boss. He was a mentor, trying to steer Ace right even if Ace didn't want to listen. Before Paid in Full, Chi McBride had already made a name for himself in films like What's Love Got to Do with It, 1993, and The Great White Hype, 1996. Chi McBride is now 63. He still takes on roles here and there, bringing his signature grounded presence to each one. But for Paid in Full fans, he'll always be Mr. Pip, the boss who didn't want Ace to go down the wrong path, but still owed him $75. Up next is June, better known as Aunt June, played by the always captivating Elise Neal. Let's talk about her for a minute. In Paid in Full, Aunt June is Ace's aunt, and just like his mom, she doesn't call him Ace. She calls him Lucky. She's family through and through, and when Lucky decides to go all in on the crack business, Aunt June doesn't hesitate. She's the first person he goes to, and her place becomes the unofficial HQ. This is where the real operation happens, bagging up product, counting stacks of money, and keeping things moving behind the scenes. And listen, Aunt June wasn't just turning a blind eye, she was all the way in. No hesitation, no second guessing. She knew what the game was, and she was playing it right alongside him. She wasn't just helping out of love, she was about that life. In many ways, she made things run smoothly. If Ace was the boss, Aunt June was the COO. But like a lot of people in this story, her ride comes to a tragic end. It's tough to watch, especially because she really was one of the people who helped build the empire from the ground up. Elise Neal was 36 at the time of the film, already making waves in Hollywood. In 1997 alone, she hit big with Rosewood, Money Talks, and Scream 2. And of course, folks who watched Hustle and Flow will always remember her as Yvette, a role that really stamped her name in the game. Now at 59, Elise Neal is still active in the entertainment world. She continues to shine, taking on new roles and projects, but to Paid in Full fans, she'll always be Aunt June, the one who opened her doors, handled business like a boss, and helped turn Lucky's ambition into a full-blown operation. Moving on, we have Lulu, played by S.I. Morales. Lulu is the low-key, well-dressed man who flips Ace's entire world without even trying. Ace meets him while dropping off clothes for another client, just another errand on a regular day. But Lulu notices something in Ace, and just like that, a connection is made. When Ace later finds a little white bag in one of Lulu's garments, he realizes the quiet guy with class is deep in the game. That's the twist. Lulu isn't flashy. He doesn't yell, doesn't show off, doesn't act like a typical drug dealer. But make no mistake, he's a big player. And once that door opens, he becomes Ace's main supplier. That quiet introduction turns into a business partnership that launches Ace from behind a counter to running his own operation. S.I. Morales brought that smooth, mysterious energy to the role. He was 40 at the time and already had years of acting under his belt. Of Puerto Rican descent, he'd been active since the 80s, starring in classics like La Bamba, 1987. Since then, he stayed booked and busy, especially in crime and detective shows like NCIS and Criminal Minds, where his sharp presence fits perfectly. Lulu may not have had a ton of screen time, but his impact was massive. Without Lulu in the picture, Ace would probably be folding shirts and chasing down Mr. Pip for his $75. Lulu was that crucial.
Man, I ain't eating.
Those words from Wedge, played by Nelson Tynes, stick with me. Now remember how I said this game is full of betrayal? Well, Wedge was the embodiment of that, and man, did he make you feel it. This guy was supposed to be working for Ace, but instead, he turned out to be a snide little character, trying to set Ace up for the fall. It was crazy because Ace always wanted everyone to eat. By eat, I mean he wanted everyone around him to enjoy the spoils of his success, to ride the wave with him as his empire grew. But Wedge? Nah. He wasn't having that. The dude was just one greedy guy, looking out for himself and only himself. Nelson Tynes, probably in his 20s when the film came out, gave us a character you couldn't help but laugh at. Wedge wasn't about loyalty or respect. He wanted to eat first and make sure everyone else starved in the process. And that betrayal, well, it hit hard, because you expected him to be on the side of the person who was trying to make it all work, but instead, he showed his true colors. Outside of Paid in Full, Nelson's known for a few other roles like Cypher, 2002, and some lesser-known films, but if you look for him now, you'll find very little. He's probably in his 50s by now, and he keeps a super low profile. You won't find much about him on the web, other than memes, of course. We do hope, though, that wherever he is now, he's finally eating. Because in the end, Wedge was just another example of how greed can get the best of you, no matter how much you think you deserve. Let's talk about Uncle Ice, played by the late Ron Cephas Jones. Uncle Ice was Mitch's uncle, and Sonny's too. He lived with them, right there in the house, which made what he did even more disturbing. At first, Mitch tried to look out for him. He hooked him up with some product to sell, gave him a chance to make some real money. But instead of flipping it like he was supposed to, Uncle Ice started using. Just like that, he let the streets swallow him whole. And what followed? Bitterness, jealousy. He couldn't stand seeing his young nephew living the life he probably wished he had. So there he sat, posted up outside the corner store day after day, not doing much of anything except stewing in envy. That envy eventually pushed him to one of the film's most heartbreaking moments. He organized the kidnapping of Mitch's little brother, Sonny. That betrayal? It hit hard. It didn't just cost lives. It destroyed everything Mitch was trying to hold on to. Ron Cephas Jones was 45 when he played Uncle Ice, and by then he had already appeared in a few solid films from the 90s, like He Got Game, 1998, and Sweet and Lowdown, 1999. But it was after Paid in Full that he really found his groove on television. He went on to shine in a number of roles, but most notably, he became widely known and loved for his portrayal of William Hill in the hit drama series This Is Us. That role earned him critical acclaim, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and 2 Primetime Emmy Awards. Sadly, Ron passed away in 2023 at the age of 66. He left behind his wife Kim Leslie, a talented singer, and his beautiful daughter Jasmine Cephas Jones, an actress in her own right who's continuing the legacy. Ron may be gone, but the depth he brought to Uncle Ice, and later to so many other roles, continues to resonate. Let's talk about Tommy, played by Rufus Crawford. Tommy was working at the local store that Uncle Ice used to lounge around in, a spot that was probably more of a front than an actual business. Who would suspect him? No one. He was just another guy in the neighborhood, blending in, keeping things low-key. But behind the scenes, he was all about the hustle. Tommy was close friends with Mitch, and Mitch would often swing by the store, handing him money after a successful day of selling product. It was clear. Tommy was no stranger to the drug game, and with his connection to Mitch, it made sense that he might have been one of the suppliers moving product. But things took a dark turn when Tommy teamed up with Uncle Ice for something truly horrific: kidnapping Sonny, Mitch's little brother. In a moment that will never be forgotten, Tommy was the one who took Sonny's life. A tragic betrayal, and it cut deep for the characters and for the audience. Rufus Crawford was 47 at the time, and while acting was his gig, he had an impressive past in football. Before making his mark in Hollywood, he was a running back for the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the Canadian Football League from 1979 to 1985. Now, at 69, Rufus Crawford still takes on guest roles here and there, especially on TV, but for fans of Paid in Full, he'll always be remembered as Tommy, the guy who played a part in one of the most shocking moments in the film. Sonny, played by Remo Green, was one of those characters that I rooted for, even though his misfortunes cut deep. He was Mitch's younger brother, a young boy with no clear moral compass, yet he aspired to be just like his big brother. You could sense that Mitch influenced him in every way, for better or worse. Sonny was drawn to the allure of the lifestyle, eager to hit up the club even at a young age, even though deep down, Mitch didn't want the little man to follow his own reckless path. Remo Green portrayed Sonny when he was probably in his early teens, bringing a raw vulnerability to the role that made his struggles feel all the more heartbreaking. After Paid in Full, Remo never stepped in front of the camera again in film. Instead, he carved out a niche behind the scenes as a music producer, now going by the name Remo the Hitmaker. If you ask me, he's in his late 30s today, still working his magic in a different corner of the entertainment world. But for many of us, he'll always be remembered as the young Sonny whose dreams were as big as his brother's influence. Up next, we've got Joyce Walker-Joseph, and let me tell you, her role in Paid in Full might have been short, but it stuck with you. She played Janet Woods, Mitch's mom. And man, the stress this woman was under, you felt it. Her youngest boy, Sonny, gets kidnapped, and she's just broken. You can see it all over her face. Panic, fear, confusion. And Mitch, her eldest, is out here thinking he can fix it all. Like any mother would, she's hoping for the best. But you know deep down, she's scared to death about what's coming. There's this one scene that hits you right in the gut. Ace walks into the house after everything goes down with Mitch. Kesha and Janet are sitting there, grieving, and it's just this heavy silence. No one has to say a word. The pain is loud. Joyce didn't need a bunch of dialogue to make you feel it. She just was that moment. What's wild is, she was 54 at the time, but her legacy goes way back before this film. You might not know, but Joyce was actually a model in the 70s. And not just any model. She made history as the first black woman to ever grace the full cover of 17 magazine. That was back in November of 1972, and it was a huge deal. She wasn't just on the sidelines, she was breaking barriers. She also had some solid film credits under her belt way before Paid in Full, like Shaft's Big Score, 1972, Willie Dynamite, 1973, and The Education of Sonny Carson, 1974. She's been around doing her thing quietly but powerfully. Now she's 77, and still growing old gracefully. For me and a lot of Paid in Full fans, she'll always be remembered for that one heartbreaking moment, sitting in that living room, trying to hold it together after losing her son. A small role, but unforgettable. And that's a wrap on Paid in Full, a film that showed us how chasing the dream can come with a price you never saw coming. Ace just wanted a way out, Mitch just wanted to shine, and Rico? Well, Rico reminded us that snakes don't always hiss. This wasn't just a story about drugs and money. It was about brotherhood tested by greed, trust broken by ego, and a man who gave everything to the game, only to realize the game had no loyalty. Thanks for watching Movie Bites, where we don't just revisit the classics. We honor the stories that still speak to the streets, the struggle, and the soul. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know which film you want us to break down next. Until then, stay focused, stay loyal, and remember, not everyone in your circle is in your corner.